New tonight, we have confirmed a new COVID outbreak at a Renton hotel that's used to house the homeless.
Public Health Seattle King County says there are 30 positive coronavirus cases linked to the Red Lion Hotel in Renton. KOMO's Michelle Esteban is tracking the story tonight, and Michelle, health officials have been worried about the surge in the homeless population.
They really have, and I can tell you tonight, all of those residents are quarantining. In fact, most people that are close to them, I'm told they're also isolating as well at a county facility. But I have to tell you that this news for some city leaders came as a surprise.
It's sort of a somewhat stunning bit of information.
That's how Renton Councilmember Randy Corman describes the news of a COVID outbreak here at the Red Lion Hotel shelter in Renton.
The shelter had been pretty effective at doing what it was intended to do, which was to help stop the spread of COVID.
But that changed today when the county health department confirmed to KOMO News 30 cases now associated with the Red Lion, the first case identified on December 5th.
If it's 30 individuals in a shelter of 250, it's got a rate that's about 4 times higher than the rate overall in the city.
We've been covering the Red Lion as part of our Project Seattle reports and recently told you Renton City Council passed a mandate to vacate the hotel shelter beginning next summer. The hotel turned shelter is part of the county's emergency response to COVID. Corman says that might explain why he found out about the outbreak through the media, not the county.
It is showing us sort of a hole in the communication system.
And to help reduce further spread, they've made these changes, closing down any common areas where people gather, delivering all meals to residents' rooms, more regular high-touch cleaning, and all staff to wear masks and face shields. According to King County, since the pandemic began, there have been 1,015 confirmed cases among the county's homeless, sheltered and unsheltered, and 94 employees who work with the homeless. The county says the spike at the Red Lion is consistent with the transmission peak countywide.
As a council member, I'm concerned about the health and welfare of our entire community, and including all of the people staying at the Red Lion.
Let's turn now to the latest numbers from the state health department. The DOH reports more than 1,500 new cases of COVID-19 for a total of more than 242,000 since the start of the outbreak. And that includes confirmed as well as probable cases. Another 126 people have been hospitalized. The state reports 51 more deaths for a new statewide death toll of 3,420.
Today, the governor extended a statewide ban on indoor dining and other restrictions on recreation and gatherings for one more week. And those restrictions, which have been in place since mid-November, were supposed to end next Monday. That's now been pushed back to January 11th. And a new reopening plan is expected to be unveiled sometime next week. The president and CEO of the Washington Hospitality Association released this statement in response. He says, quote, "When will Main Street businesses see a plan from the governor that will pull them back from the brink rather than pushing them over it?" He adds hospitality operators are falling deeper in the red. Hospitality workers remain out of work. Businesses are closing and household bills are going unpaid. But tonight, the state's health leaders say they have proof that the restrictions are actually working, especially when it comes to restaurants. KOMO's Keith Eldridge live with more on the governor's reasoning for all this. Keith?
Right. While the governor didn't speak personally today, his health secretary and other health leaders say there is good reason for the extensions to be put into place here for the one-week extension. They did admit, though, that they are seeing good numbers coming out of the cases that were spiking a while ago, continue to trend downward. Well, that's the good news. The challenging news is that the case rates are still way too high and the virus continues to spread. They say it'll be months before the vaccinations have a major impact, and so the restrictions need to stay in place. They say when you look at outbreaks, most of them are in long-term care settings. But in long-term, non-long-term care settings, before the restrictions, restaurants and food service outlets, there were 221 outbreaks where they were occurring. But since restrictions were in place, 0 outbreaks in restaurants.
I mean, as you see in the restaurants this week, there were no restaurants identified. But that's because they're closed. The restrictions put in place for restaurants has clearly affected the number of outbreaks in restaurants in the most recent reporting period.
We have seen some improvement in what's happening in our healthcare system and the numbers post the Thanksgiving and even the holidays with the additional restrictions that were put in place. But we're not out of the woods here.
However, help is on the way with more vaccines arriving this week. They say 57,500 doses of the Pfizer vaccine and 44,500 doses of the Moderna vaccine are arriving this week. That brings the total so far to 356,650, but only 59,491 have been administered. That's a little over 18%, so they are still working on that. Now, as far at this point, they're not ready to say who's going to be in the next group of people to get vaccines, whether they go with the CDC recommendations of those 75 and older. They're going to have a decision on that expected announcement next week, with those people not likely to get those vaccines until late in January.
Hey, Molly, we're told roughly 40 people were staying in 16 rooms here. They paid for one night. They ended up staying 6 nights. Now, the hotel owner says he feared for the health of his business. He also feared for the health of his staff after 2 of the members of the group here tested positive for COVID-19. And today, the police moved in. And we were here with our cameras as some officers went door to door and forced out dozens of men and women. The organization Tacoma Housing Now originally booked the room for the homeless folks on Christmas Eve. And some homeless advocates said they should not be forced out during a pandemic. Today, Police Chief Peter Fisher said they have a zero-tolerance policy. If you're not paying to stay somewhere and you're asked and refuse to leave, you're going to jail, he said.
Hopefully they will do what they need to do to stay housed and not commit criminal violations. And I want to be clear, what occurred here was a crime, numerous crimes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Preston Phillips from KOMO News. Thanks for checking out the KOMO YouTube channel. You can see more of our videos right here by clicking on the video links for more news from the Seattle area and Western Washington. Oh, and don't forget to click the subscribe button below so you don't miss our YouTube updates.